Okay, Mrs. Farkas, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Welcome.
And when we were discussing learning about your amazing Hungarian cooking, I didn't even realize that today was going to be International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So it's really fortuitous that this is the day that worked out. And I thank you and dear Julie. I know cooking is probably a labor of love and a lot of labor, so we appreciate it. And I'll just tell you a little bit about me and why I'm so honored to be interviewing you. I grew up with very little Jewish education and perspective. And I grew up in suburban Atlanta, and I really didn't know that much about the broader world and about various Jewish communities and where they were. And I feel that it is so important for us as thinking, breathing, living Jews, trying, God willing, to raise our children in Jewish homes, to really understand that it's not even just about us, or a lot of people focus on future generations, which are really important, but we can really only build a future if we understand the past and where we came from. And we're so connected, interconnected Jews around the world. And I think it's so important to really learn what that means, who they were, their stories, their recipes, so that we can honor your legacy and the legacy that you're passing
Thank
down,
you.
of course, to your children and grandchildren. And so that our children can really understand who we are and this incredible history that we share. And this evening, we learned 3 weeks ago about the Moroccan Jewish community and then the Libyan and Italian Jewish community. And their story has a lot of pain and tragedy and expulsion and hiding and murder as well. And so it's really sad that that's one thing that unites so much of our shared history. And I was wondering if we could begin by hearing a little bit about your family's history, how long they had been in Hungary, and what it was like before the war.
Okay, definitely. I'm gladly tell you whatever would you like to know.
Okay. So what was it like? Were both of your parents Hungarian?
Yes, my both parents, my mother and father was Hungarian, and they both of them born in Hungary, and even the family was born. My grandmother, my great grandmother, they were born in Hungary. My father's side, I think a lot of family member came from Germany, so we did some research with my brother, and that's what came up. So that could be my father, great grandmother side, probably.
And what was life like for your family in Hungary before the war?
Before the war, the Jewish people had it pretty good, very well. We had my parents made a very good living. We had a nice home.
What did your parents do professionally?
My father had, he was making a shirt and pajamas. He had a factory, and my mother was working with him, together. And my mother was a chef originally. After she got married, she was working with my father, and we had a good living. When I was born, the family was very good situation. We weren't very rich, that we were wealthy. And I went to them. My parents told me they sent me to the kindergarten where we learned German. I don't remember because I was very small, probably. So that's what we did.
Was it a Jewish school that you went to?
I went to the Jewish school after the war, not before.
You went to a
kindergarten. They had a Jewish high school before the war because my father went there, and they didn't have the kindergarten. We learned, I was about 3-4 years old, when I went to kindergarten. So we learned that my parents was Shaima Shabbos all the time, and we were raised as a Shaima Shabbos, kids.
How many siblings did you have?
I have one brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And before the war, did your father sell garments mostly to non-Jews? Was he like accepted in the regular Hungarian society?
Yes, he was. He was accepted. Only thing when he was younger, he was athlete, you know, and he was very good athlete. And that time I was Olympic, and they didn't let him go to the Olympic because he was Jewish.
What sport did he play?
He was in Hungary, in Budapest. He was in the group with the all athlete, you know.
Uh-huh.
So he couldn't go to the Olympic because he was Jewish.
That
You
was the
know?
36 Olympics or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was single. Yeah, 36.
And
Yeah.
did they feel anti-Semitism in Hungary before the war?
Was anti-Semitism? Yes.
Well,
But
obviously he couldn't join the Olympics. How
he
else did it manifest itself?
yeah he was fighting anti-Semitism. He was a very strong person, and he was a Zionist, and he was fighting it. You know, they couldn't do anything about it because anti-Semitism was growing very fast, and then came Hitler, and took over. You
And
know,
did things change quickly after Hungary became occupied by the German
yeah.
army?
Yes, it's after Hitler. First of all, was anti-Semitism, and deport. Also, they start deporting Jewish people, not to Auschwitz, like in 1943. I was a small kid. That my parents told me the story, like they made like working camp for Jewish men, and they had to go into the camp and work over there for the Germans. The Hitler didn't occupy Budapest yet. You know, he occupied Budapest in 1944. So there was anti-Semitism in 43, 42. Yes. Was
And I'm sorry, I think I missed which city in Hungary did your family live?
um, we lived in Budapest. My mother came from Nyíregyháza. You know, that's out of town. My father born in Budapest too.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother's side, they are from Nyíregyháza, Debrecen. You know, if you know that it's a smaller towns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So out of towns.
I
Yeah.
know that we're going to go in chronological order, but I know that your husband's family was also in the war.
Yes.
And were they also from Budapest?
No, my husband came from Romania. That time was Hungary, from Satmar, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
For
and
people that don't know, Satmar is a group of Hasidim, what I hate using labels, but what people consider ultra Orthodox Jews. Did your husband come from a very religious family?
he came from the very religious family, that he wasn't a Satmar Hosed. And
Mhm.
my father wasn't either a Satmar Hosed. He was very, very religious. That they were other groups, not in the Satmar, you know.
Mhm.
So my knowledge is the Satmar groups, people who's from Satmar Hosed. Not everybody comes from Satmar. They only join the Rebbe, the Satmari Rebbe. So that's why they call him a Satmari Hosed, because not everybody come from Satmar.
Did Satmar originate in Hungary?
It's Satmar was on the border, so certain times up to that who occupied. So in 1940, 44, 43, Satmar belonged to Hungary. And after 1945, 46, Satmar Nice belonged to Romania. You
Oh.
know, so they were changing government. Yeah.
How many siblings did your husband have before the war?
They had 11, and they had 13.
13 children or 11 kids?
And 13. I think no, my father-in-law was married twice because he lost his first wife. So from the first wife had 4, and the second wife had 11 children, 15 children.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many of them survived the war?
From the first wife, only 1 survived, and from the second one, 3 of them. From 11 children, only 3 survived the war.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened to your family during the war?
So my father was in that working camp in 1943 and 44. And that working camp was still in Budapest. So he was going in, sometime he was coming home in the evening, and then he had to go back in the morning, or he get 2-day pass. So we saw my father not daily, that we saw pretty often. And in 1944, when Hitler came into Budapest and took over, they took my father away. And they went, the whole group, that working group was more than one, not only one group, only was men, only men groups. And they took them out to the border, and they made them to work for the Germans. So we didn't see my father from 1944, March till January 18th in 1945. So for a whole year. And we didn't even know if he's alive. We didn't know where is he, and he didn't know anything about us either.
How old were you at the time?
I was 5 years old.
What was that like for your mother?
My mother had a very hard time. That she was a very, very smart woman, and she always knew what to do, and she always protect her family, because we had situation when was the Nazis, who worked for Hitler. They came to the house and they wanted to take my mother away and deport them to Auschwitz, and she always knew how to get out of it. So we survived, and we survived because that too,
Like, where did you guys go?
So what happened is my parents put us in, me and my brother, to a home. If you heard about Raoul Wallenberg.
Yeah, of course.
And he made agreement with the Germans. They're going to make like an orphanage home for children, and they're going to be protected under the Swedish government, and they're not going to touch them. So we were in that home, me and my brother. And my brother got sick. So my mother used to come in daily to see us. And after a while, they didn't let them in. They didn't let my mother in. So she had to stay by the window outside, and we said hello to her. And after a while, they told her not to come at all because it was very dangerous to walk on the street, And so me and my brother was in that home, and my brother got very sick. He got a scarlet fever. And then the Nazis came in, and they told the children to get out of the building, and we should go to the street. And my brother was in the infirmary, and I was in another room. I tell you the truth, I don't remember exactly how it happened and how fast or what, that I went into my brother's room, and I grabbed him, and I took him out of the room. And he came with me. We walked. He wasn't even dressed, So then they made us to walk to the ghetto. You heard about the Hungarian ghetto in Budapest?
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
I just want to really quickly just tell, for those of you that don't know, because I think it's extremely important that we recognize who Raoul Wallenberg was and how he died. So he was actually a Swiss businessman and philanthropist and humanitarian. He's recognized at Yad Vashem, of course. Like, really, it's so unbelievable to think about what he went through, and he saved, I don't know if they know an exact number, but tens and thousands
Yes,
of Jews occupied in Hungary.
that's right.
And he was arrested actually for espionage and later killed in
From
1940.
the Russian. The
From the Russians.
Russian, yeah, the Russian, yeah, arrested him, and on the way to Russia, he disappeared.
But he
Uh,
saved the life of you and your brother
Yes, he
and
did.
tens and thousands of other
Yes,
Hungarian
he
Jews.
did. He did.
And he was killed for it.
Yeah, yeah, he did. He did, and he saved a lot of people's life, you know, and was amazing because a lot of people try to help us, and I tell you, a lot of Israeli uh, people was in Hungary who was saving people life too. And there was another person who tried to really save a lot, and he did, was Kessler, you know, with the train. If you heard about it, he made a train, and he wanted to take the Jewish people to Switzerland, you know,
Mhm.
and he saved people. He did, you know.
Yeah, it's really amazing to think about because obviously so many non-Jews, sadly, unfortunately, for reasons that it's hard to fathom and comprehend and understand what it was like at the time, but so many of them did turn their back on their Jewish neighbors. So it's amazing that we have, I forget the count that they have of righteous Gentiles in Yad Vashem that they recognize, but it's amazing.
It
The
is.
the people who didn't, okay, I guess it's such a moral dilemma to think about. Should they have risked their life? Why didn't they? And then I think it's just so amazing to think about those who actually did, that
Yes,
they risked their lives, and many of them were killed for trying. And it's
definitely.
really, because of them, people like you, thank God, survived. And it's amazing that at such a young age, do you remember what it was like living during that time period?
Yes, I do. It was horrible. It was horrible because, you know, when they took us out from that home, they made us march to the ghetto, and we didn't even know where we're going. And before the ghetto, in the ghetto, there was a big, very big park in there, you know, like a playground, and that's where they put us to wait to other transportation. You know, other kids should come in, so they accumulate all the Jewish kids who was in that home, not just that home where I was. There was other homes, but 10 of them, something like that. And so they made us get together over there. And after that, they put the kids. I escaped with my brother. My mother was helping me to escape, you know, because
How old was your brother? What's the age
my
gap?
brother was 3 years old.
So you were responsible for saving your 3-year-old brother's life
That's what he said.
at the age of 5 years old.
That's what he said. He told his kids, and he said to the kids, you know, I'm here and you are here because my sister, you know. I don't know how did that, you know, it was Hashem helped me, you know, that we were there in that park, and my mother find out, she was in the ghetto, and she find out we are there, so she came there, and she was a very fine woman, and she went to the Nazi, and she said, my 2 kids is right there. Can I just talk to them? I'm not going to take them anywhere. I'm not going to do anything. Just I want to talk. And it's luck. Everything is muzzle, you know. And he said, yeah, go ahead, take them. I mean, go ahead, go talk to them or what. So my mother came to us. I remember that, and said, don't say anything, just follow me, you know. And we followed her. So a Nazi said to her, what are you doing? Where are you taking them? She said, oh, I just give them a little soup and I'm going to bring them back because I have no place to stay. They can't stay with me and I don't want them, that they are so hungry. You know, I'm sorry. He said, okay, go ahead, take them, then make sure you bring them back, you know? And my mother took us, and we were hiding for weeks and weeks in the apartment, you know, because we were always afraid somebody gonna come in and recognize or going to take us away, you know, like that. And that's how we survived. And the
What were
other
the
kids
conditions
who,
like in the ghetto?
yeah, it was bad. First of all, my brother was sick. He had scarlet fever and he was very, very sick. So luckily my mother find a doctor who was willing to treat him. And that's how he survived. And we had no food. We got once a day, we got tomato soup with spaghetti. You know, that was like water, and that was the food for us. You know, and was you know, you were locked up. You weren't allowed to go out anywhere, and we couldn't take a bath. We couldn't, you know, just washed with cold water, you know, and there was a very bad condition, and we never knew which moment they will take us and you know, transport us to Auschwitz or any other concentration camp, you know.
Did a lot of people from the Budapest ghetto, were they killed?
Yes,
Most of them, right?
yes, a lot of people got killed. Yes, these
You were
children
able to
who
stay
was
with
saved by the orphanage home, a lot of them was killed in the Danube. If you heard about that murdering in people in the Danube, the
Mhm.
children who stayed in that park and they went, you know, they got killed there. Yeah.
Wow, that was tremendous. See, and that's, your mom had one of those terrible Sophie's Choices decisions in that moment because
He had, yeah.
she didn't know what would happen. On the one hand, it was punishable by death, and she could have just, all of you, God forbid, a million times could have been killed instantly. She
And
went against the Nazis and
she
she
went,
made a decision.
that's right. She went through a lot. It's not the only thing she did. You know, a lot of times she was the last minute already. You know, they take her to the concentration camp or what, and it's Hashem was there.
And
Help her,
how
you know.
did your father survive the work camp?
Yes, my father survived. My father was in the working camp, and they took him out near the Russian border. You know, the German, under the German supervision, and he was working there. He was a very strong man, and he told us also a story when they select 10 people and they want to shoot the 10 Jewish people, and he was one of them. And the person who wanted to shoot was ready to shoot them when they heard like a whistle and a bomb fell on the person, and the 10 Jewish people survived. And one of them was my father, you know?
And
So,
just
so
attribute
it
it
was
to
miracles, yeah. He was
Mhm.
telling us a lot of things, a lot of miracles happened, you know? Yeah.
So what was liberation like? Do you remember liberation?
Yes, I do remember. I remember that because my father escaped from the Germans, and he found the Russian people, you know, a Russian army, and he joined the Russian army as a partisan. And they asked him if he knows how to get into Budapest, you know, if he knows the road. And he said, yes, he does. And he showed them how to come in. You know, they were out of town somewhere, and he came in with them and he showed them. And then when they were in Hungary, the first thing, he went to our apartment and looked for us, and he couldn't find us there because we were in the ghetto, you know. So he went to the superintendent, who was a very nice woman. She was not a Jewish woman, and she was in a very good term with us before the war, and we support her a lot, you know. And my father went to her and asked her if she knows where is his family. And she said, yes, in the ghetto. Which one? Well, so she gave my father the address, and my father went there and he couldn't find us. And he went back and he told her If I can't find my family, I'm going to kill you right here. You know, come with me and show me, you know, and where is my family? So she came. She was afraid to go out because there was bodies all over on the street. Dead animals was terrible in Hungary, you know, that time. And she came with my father and showed my father where we live. And my father found us, and she was very happy. My father was happy, and she was happy, and we were happy to see my father, you know. And so that's how we reunion in after the war, right after the liberation, the same day when the Russian liberate Hungary, Budapest.
So your parents, both for about a year, your father first in a forced labor camp,
Yeah,
then as a partisan fighter in the Russian army,
yeah,
and your mother alone at first in the Budapest ghetto, and then later miraculously smuggling her two very small children
that's
in.
right.
And neither of them had any idea how the other person was faring,
No,
knowing that the vast majority of Hungarian Jews were killed during that time period. So how did they survive? Like, how did they get through that? Psychologically, I mean, emotionally.
was really, my mother took it very hard because my mother lost a brother. Her brother was in a concentration camp, and he never came back. And they were very close. They were very close. And my mother took many years till my mother get over it, you know. And my father was a strong man. That he lost his sister, you know, and we lost other family, you know, members from our family. That was the closest one. So my father had to stand on his feet right away because he had a family and he had to take care of. We all was in a very bad shape. You
So
know,
that's
we
what
had
I
no
wanted
food.
to ask you about. I feel like um, there isn't as much talk about what happened after the war, because of course, so much of the emphasis is on the complete devastation of how many Jews were killed. What was it like for people like your family who, thank God, survived, but had been through terrible, terrible trauma? How did your parents rebuild, and
Um,
were they in a
was
refugee camp?
very hard. I
Or
understand what you're saying. First of all, was a lot of talk about what happened. Everybody was telling stories and what happened, how many people died. And after the war was very hard because the Russian came in, and the Russian took over. And it wasn't like that when then they accept we suffered from the German, so they tried to help us or try to make better for us. It was really the opposite because the Russian tried to take more people from us. They killed more people, you know, and they killed more Jewish people. Some Jewish men survived in the concentration camp and they came back to Budapest or Hungary, and then the Russian got them and they took them to Siberia, you know, or Ukraine, you know, and some of them got killed right there, you know, and was very very hard. My father had to hide a couple of times because the Russian came to the house and to look for you know, men, and they wanted to take the men away. And then when they find food or anything to drink, they came and they took it, you know, in the house, from the house. They don't care. There's children who's hungry or what. So it was very, very hard after the war for about 4 or 5 years at least.
so your parents, they were able to go back to their house, but under these very, very challenging conditions.
What happened is they yes, because when we were in the ghetto, other people moved in our apartment, you know, and we had the furniture, we had everything. We left everything in the house. So these people and other people, non-Jewish people, moved into our apartment. And my father, when my father came back, he was looking for us in our apartment. He didn't know we are in the ghetto. And he went to the apartment and he saw strange people there. And he said to the people, he said, "This is my home. What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm coming back in 2 hours. I don't want to see you here. If I see you here, I kill you all over." You know, my father had a anger, really anger, what happened to him and to his family, you know, or what. So he said to them, "You better move out from this house." So when we went back to the apartment, it was empty. So we could move back to our apartment, you know.
And
So
could he, I mean, did he work previously, you said in clothing, was his shop destroyed? Was there
uh,
any
the
business to go
shop
back to?
shop was not destroyed. The merchandise, everything was taken away from the shop, you know. And certain merchandise, my father was hiding it, you know, before the war or what. So that's what's left. After that, he didn't have a factory. He didn't have the factory anymore. He had a store. He was still making pajamas and shirt and pajamas. The Russian government didn't let have a private store owner. So everybody had to go to work for the government. Then my father refused to do that. He didn't want to work for the government. He didn't want to be a communist, and he had a very hard time because that he opened a small store where he did repair, shirt or pajamas. If the color was torn, he could change it and he'd make a new one, and it's cheaper than to buy a new one. And people couldn't afford to buy a new one, you know, because there was a very bad condition in Hungary from 1945 till was a revolution, 1956.
So
You know,
your parents stayed in Hungary for how many years after the war?
11 years.
Wow.
11 years, yeah. We couldn't leave. My parents, my father had a mother who was an elderly woman and couldn't be transported. And
Where
my mother,
where was your father's mother during the war?
she was in a ghetto. She was in the ghetto with us.
And
Yeah.
she survived that.
Yeah, she was there. She survived there. And she died in 1947, right after that, you know. And my mother had a mother who was living with us all the time because she was a widow. My grandfather passed away before the war, and she was an elderly woman. And my father said, "I can't escape with 2 old people and with 2 small kids, you know." And so he decided he had to stay. He had no choice, you know. And we didn't want to leave my grandmothers there.
Did he have opportunities to escape before?
Like other people, you know, people who came back from Germany, from a concentration camp. They came back and they looked for the family. They couldn't find the family, so they escaped through the border. Was no transportation, no trains, no cars, you know. So you have to get to the Austrian border and you have to walk through the borders. And that's how
He
people,
chose to stay with his elderly mother and
yeah,
mother.
that's what they decided. They couldn't leave their mother there. They couldn't. So one of my grandmother, my father mother passed away, and my mother lived with us. And she came with us to Israel in 1956. 57, we went to Israel.
So you
So
didn't have the opportunity to leave Hungary until 1957.
no.
Can I ask you, what was it like living with those neighbors, knowing, that they were bystanders to see all of your suffering?
The apartment house where we lived wasn't so bad. The neighbor who was really was joining the Nazi party, I remember one young guy, he escaped. He went to Austria, in Vienna. He went to Vienna. His father stayed there. His father wasn't the Nazi. He didn't, join the Nazi party. And the superintendent was very good to us. She was fine. And that was okay. To live with them in the house was fine.
And you and your brother went back to school in Hungary?
I went back to school. Yeah, I went to the elementary school till 8th grade. And then after that, I went to the Jewish high school, because the Russian government didn't want I should go further education till 8th grades. And they wanted I should go to work. And my father said no. So kids like me was about 100. We were about 100 boys, but 200 kids. And the Orthodox Union made a high school for us, So they had a Jewish high school, a religious high school. Shabbos, we kept Shabbos, and we learned a lot of Jewish things, and then we had, other subject, math, and was a very good school. And
then
my parents had to pay for it.
And how did they choose to go to Israel?
We had no choice. What happened was a revolution in 1956.
Had your parents wanted to leave Hungary prior to that, but they didn't?
Yes, they wanted to leave, definitely. They didn't want to stay. And we had no opportunity to leave. We couldn't leave. So 1956, my father said, we're not staying. We're not staying. We were all there. I was 18 almost. My brother was 16. And he said, I have 2 kids who grow up as Shaima Shabbos, and we have no choice. We have to go somewhere. I had my grandmother who couldn't walk, and we didn't want to leave her. So the Israeli government gave the visa to Israel, and he helped us to go to Israel, and we chose to go to Israel. So that's how we went to Israel.
Where did you settle in Israel?
We settled in Yerushalayim, Beit Mazmil.
I don't know.
Near Yad Vashem. Now it's near Yad Vashem.
Okay.
It's called Mabara, like people who came from all over the world, Egyptian and Romanian and all the immigrant was got up small houses, not even a house, just apartment, and we lived there for 1 year. And a year later, my parents bought an apartment.
And then how did you end up in the States?
I met my husband in Israel. And a month later, I went to Israel. We immigrated to Israel. A month later, I met my husband there. And I got married in 3 months later, and I stayed in Israel for a year. And he was an American man,
How old were you?
18.
And how old was your husband? If you don't mind me
He was 32.
Okay. I asked Julie if there were any off the limits questions. So
okay, no problem.
Your husband was Polish?
No, he was Romanian. From Satmara. Right. Yeah.
And he was in the concentration camps?
Yes.
And then after the war, he on his own or with a few siblings went to America?
No, he had a sibling, and they came different time to America. He and his brother, they're not together. They came to America here, and he was here. And then and he had a sister in Israel. In 1956, he wasn't married yet, and he went to Israel to visit his sister, And that's what happened. He was there and he was visiting his sister. He was there for 6 months and was bashert and was waiting for me to come out from from Budapest,
Did
Hungary.
you speak English at that point, or what language did
No, I didn't.
what
I
language did you guys speak
just
together?
Hungarian. I spoke only Hungarian. And he came from Romania. And I told you, sometime Romania was Hungarian side and sometime Romanian. So he spoke some Hungarian. I mean, very bad one. They we understand each other. And he had a big family in Israel. Very, very nice people. Very, very lovely. My sister-in-law was a lovely person. And so they spoke Hungarian. So that's how we communicate.
How old was he when he moved to America after the war?
He was about 20, something
So
like that.
your husband was an orphan survivor.
Yes,
His parents were killed. On his own, he moved to America and he taught himself English, I guess.
yes.
And what did he do professionally?
He was an electrician.
So
Yeah,
that must have been not an easy time for him.
very hard. Was a very hard time. Wasn't easy. He had a brother here, you know, and he had a half sister, you know, a half sister here. So I don't know how much help was because the sister was married already. The sister is half sister is much older, was much older than my husband.
So after 3 months, he swept you off your feet
Yes,
and you guys had this quick romance and
that,
got married. And he said, but we're going back to America because that's where I work.
yes,
So you learned a third language. You had
yeah,
to learn Hebrew when you moved to Israel.
yeah. I learned Hebrew. That's what I did. Yeah,
And so you moved to America and built a new life.
that's right.
And what was that like?
Oh, that was nice. This life
Good.
was nice. I
I'm
have wonderful 4 children, Baruch Hashem. I have wonderful grandchildren, great grandchildren, in-laws. I mean, and my son-in-law, my daughter-in-laws. Baruch Hashem, I have a wonderful life.
So was your mom ever able to come visit you in America?
Yeah, they came here. They in 1966. When my grandmother passed away, and my brother went to Paris to study. He's a commercial photographer, and in Israel that time they didn't have a school, so he had to go to Paris to study. And my parents was in Israel all by themselves, so they decided they will come here to visit me. And they came here, and when soon as they arrived, I said, "You're not going back." I didn't let them go back, so they stayed here.
And did your brother stay in?
My brother came, yes, after 2 years he finished the school. He met a girl over there, a Jewish girl, very, very nice. My sister is a lovely person, and they got married. You know, we went to a wedding there, and they came here, and they moved to Toronto, and he has 4 boys.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
So before we get to the cooking, I just have a few parting questions about your story
Okay.
because I think that the themes of survival, the theme of learning how to rebuild, the theme of continuing to maintain faith, because I know you're a very religious woman.
Yeah.
Was this hard for you? What skills do you like? In what way do you think you were able to sort of overcome a lot of these tremendous challenges, unthinkable challenges that we should never have to go through? But you have a resilience and a survival skill. What do you attribute that to?
What I attributed, first of all, um, uh, I have a lot of friends, and came from the same place that I do, and we are pretty close friends, and I'm always there for them, whatever they need, you know, and I'm always help them and always there for them, and they are also for me. So, and a lot of times we bring up a lot of things what happened, you know, and then and the end is Baruch Hashem, we are here and we have our family and that's it. So we should try to forget whatever happened. Certain things you can't forget. I always tell my children, don't let yourself fight. You have to fight for yourself and for your family. If it's anti-Semitism, fight back. You know, you have to fight back. You can't let yourself, you can't, anybody should step on you. No way. And if it didn't work, first time doesn't work, it's going to work second times. Because my feeling is if the Jewish people would be together that time, you know, when Hitler started the whole thing and we would be organized, wouldn't be a Holocaust. You know, that the Jewish people wasn't together. Everybody was for themselves. And when they took you to the concentration camp, when you know, like the animals, nobody fight back, nobody. They, you know, just they went. They didn't even ask where they're going, you know, because I hear a lot of stories. And my husband was telling me stories, you know, also he was telling me about the concentration camp. And I get angry. You know, I was young. I didn't know, I couldn't do anything about the today generation. Definitely they should fight. They shouldn't let them, and they should not happen another Holocaust.
God
You
forbid.
know?
So have you been, you live in Bergen, you live in Teaneck,
Yeah.
Bergen Fields,
Yeah.
northern Jersey now, in a very bustling Jewish community.
Yeah.
Have you chosen to go back to Hungary?
I was in Hungary. I wouldn't move back. I went back because I have friends there, and I like the country. It's a nice country, and it's good. I would not now. I would not go anymore. I took my granddaughter Julie daughter to Hungary, and we had a good time. I wanted to show her where I live and how we live there, you know, and that's a nice city. That I would not move back to Hungary, and I would not go back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
So
would
it
not.
sounds like you have some positive childhood memories,
I have,
albeit
yeah.
a stressful childhood. So talk to me about food. Was
Oh,
that food
food.
important to your family? Did you raise your kids with the food that you had made growing up? Because you moved around a lot. You went from Hungary to Israel and then building a new family in America. Was it important to you to cook the same foods that your mom had made growing up?
Yeah, we cook the same food. I did too. As of today, I do too. Yeah, because my grandmother was an excellent cook. And my mother also, my mother profession is a chef. You know, she was a chef and she worked in Israel. You know, she worked in a couple of places. One of the place she worked in the King's Hotel as a chef, as a assistant chef, and other place she was a chef in the Holy Land Hotel,
Oh,
and they
my
had
husband and
they
I
had
had
a
our third date
restaurant
in Bayit Vagan.
in Baitwagan.
My
Yeah.
husband and I had our third date in the Holy Land Hotel.
Oh, okay. She wasn't there anymore.
Beautiful, beautiful garden in the back.
Yeah, that's yeah. So she was 4.5 years there as a chef, and then they had a
When your mom moved to Israel, I'm curious, did she start cooking Israeli foods? Like, did you grow up? Because I guess you grew up mostly in Hungary, and then your teenage years you were in Israel. Did your mom switch from Hungarian food to Israeli
no,
food? No.
no. Only thing she was cooking Israeli food because in the hotels you had to do it. You know, I remember when she had to make hummus the first time from scratch. You know, she had to ask somebody how to do it. you know. And she made the hummus, and they said, "Oh, it's excellent. It's better than the Israelis making it," you know, because she had she was talented, very, very talented, you know. And then you know, they had a restaurant in the Ministerium of Foreign Affairs for many years, you know. And also they had to cook hummus and falafel and all kind of, you know, food.
So it sounds like your mom was able to adapt. Maybe
Yes,
she had
she
that
did.
great skill of being
Not the
adaptable.
language, because she had a problem with the language in Israel, Hebrew, that she was good. She was good. She learned how much she needed and she adapted. Yeah. Wherever she went, she was good. She
How
was,
old were your parents when they moved to America?
when my mother was 67 years old, I think.
Did they know English?
No. My father spoke French, fluent French, because when he was young, single, he lived in Paris for 6 years. My father spoke some Yiddish, and my mother Hungarian. That she was, I told you, she was a person who adapt everywhere. She worked in camp, you know, children camp, in the Babov camp and the Lubavitch camp, you know, and the kids loved her because even she spoke with her hand and you know, like her movement, and she was excellent, you know. So she really didn't need the language for that. And they worked here for many years, and then they worked in the Beis Yaakov in Borough Park. My father was working there for a long time, and then they worked in the Babov Yeshiva. You know, they were cooking there.
Wow. So
So,
what did she like to make?
what?
What foods did she like to make and that you like to make?
What I like, chicken cutlet. Where are you, Yehuda? My grandson loves chicken cutlet, so I make it for Shabbos.
Napoleon.
I make any kind of food. You know, I work in the nursing home for one place 23 years, other place 10 years, and we had all kind of food, and it was excellent. The food was really, really good, you know. So, and I learned a lot.
Rumor that you know how to make goulash.
Yeah, I made goulash. I just made goulash for Julie.
Can you
Yeah.
show it to me? I'm going to share the recipe. Can we see the goulash?
Right. So,
You
oh
wanna
yeah,
show-
we have the little video if you want to share the screen and go to YouTube.
Yeah, so let me just show everybody first. This is
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's the.
Grandma
yes,
Hannah's
yes,
amazing goulash.
yes.
So for those of you that don't know what goulash is, it's kind of like stew, right?
It's a stew where yeah, it's with vegetable, you know, and usually it's a very famous Hungarian food. And the shepherd, that's what come originally. The shepherd used to make it, you know, and the farmers, they used to make it for Sunday lunch, you know, and everybody got together, and they used to cook it outside with a big container, you know, in the fire under the container, and cook it for hours, you know. And
was goulash a Shabbat food?
no, not a Shabbat food.
No. I didn't know if it was like cholent.
No, not really. There is no beans in there, and no, it's vegetable in there and meat and some potato.
Okay, so I'm going to show everybody how Chaya, Mrs. Farkas, can you guys see that? Okay, here we go. This was taken from earlier this afternoon. Here we go.
Traditional goulash from Hungary. And first I put 3 tablespoons of oil and put the stove, the flame on high heat, and let it heat up, and I put the meat in there. The meat is previously washed and cleaned. and I let that braise for a couple of minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes. Till the color is, the meat color will change. Like
So I'm just going to fast forward so we can see what happens next. Still browning. I guess it takes a few minutes, right? Let's see what's next.
It's a farmer's food. That's what they usually used to eat on Sunday meals. People get together and that's what they eat. And they used to cook it outside with a big kettle, and they invite the whole family, the whole town, and they enjoy the goulash. And that's
So this is fried onions.
it's a Hungarian dish, okay? And you put the garlic in there. Onion is almost sauteed. I'm adding the garlic in, about 4 or 5 cloves of chopped garlic. And I stir it and let it saute it another 2-3 minutes. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of paprika. If you could get Hungarian paprika, would be good.
What's the
Nice
difference
the
between
color. If
Hungarian
not,
and
you could
American
use any
paprika?
It's much better. It's stronger and it's really, the color is different. You know, it's a nice red color. And I don't know, I like the Hungarian paprika.
Can you get Hungarian paprika here in America?
At some time, yes. Sometimes you could get, you know, up to that, if you go to the store, you could find certain store, you know. Then I didn't have it already a long time.
Isn't that hot on your hand?
No, my
You don't-
hand is used to it.
Yeah.
I don't feel when if I burn my hand. Any other vegetable. You know, I don't feel it anymore because I'm so used to the hand. Cook a little bit longer, saute a little bit longer, then I put the rest of the vegetable in there.
Is that beef or lamb, you said?
Beef. Pepper. It's beef.
Is that salt?
Salt.
You don't measure it, I guess.
I never measure anything.
I don't either. It drives people crazy when they ask me for a recipe.
Me too. I could write down a recipe, you know, because I wrote a lot of recipes. You know,
So did your husband work as an electrician for all these years in America?
Yes, he did. He did. He had his own business. Yeah, for a while. Yeah, he worked. Yeah.
So far it's garlic with onions, tomatoes, and carrots, and meat.
5 minutes. Yeah, and the red pepper. Let's saute. Red pepper. You could get yellow pepper there, but we didn't have this week yellow pepper in there. With the carrot and onion for 10 minutes. And now I'm adding green pepper because I couldn't find yellow pepper. Then you could add green, yellow, and red. So I'm adding the green pepper, 1 pepper, green, and 2 red peppers. It's so beautiful. The color is nice. I'm gonna add the vegetable broth now. 4 cups of vegetable broth.
With that, you're measuring.
Yeah, Usually I don't do it.
But for our benefit, you did. Thank you.
I realize that very few chefs who goes according to the recipe, you know, exactly. Cook for 30 minutes. You need to cover it and just let it cook for 30 minutes. Okay, on medium heat. Okay, I'm adding the potato to the meat. I kept the potato in cold water, shouldn't get brown. And now I'm adding the potato and you stir it in, and I'm adding the bay leaves. And that's all. And you let it cook for another 45 minutes until the meat is tender. Another 45 minutes. You have all the it's done now. It's cooked, the meat is soft. And now we could serve it, and we could serve it with noodles and decorate with some parsley. Okay, so I have some medium with noodles and
Oh, so you kind of put the stew on top of the noodles?
yeah.
That kind of.
Looks amazing.
Thank you. Maybe because this is a good thing.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
You put the gravy on it, you know. Some parsley. This is Hungarian goulash, and that goes with a Hungarian nut cake and the poppy seed cake. What we're going to show inside.
Is that puff pastry on the outside?
No, it's a Kindle pastry. This is a
It's
tradition.
like a
Kindle.
Like a knish, sort of?
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is a Hungarian nut cake. It's called Kindle.
Kindle.
And then we make it with poppy seed too.
Wow, that looks amazing. Julie, you got to enjoy it. Huh? Hi,
Anybody hungry? You could come here to eat.
I'd love to come meet you, God willing, after everyone is vaccinated and things are
Yes,
normal,
that's
God willing.
I am here. My new home's still a bit of a mess because we still don't have all of our shelves. So I thought I would.
Sorry.
One's not
No.
muted.
Chef came on YouTube. So a few people have been texting me questions,
okay.
and I did ask Julie if there's anything that I couldn't ask, but it's so difficult to process the type of childhood that you had and the amazing life that your mother and your father led and were able to rebuild. And I can't help but looking around at the way I was raised and the way my children are being raised. And of course, we don't want these kind of challenges. Nobody in their, would ever wish, God forbid, on their worst enemy to have the type of childhood that you had and endured what you had. So I wonder what it's like, especially for your parents when they moved to America in their 60s, to sort of watch the next generation as we deal with our own challenges. you know, one thing that people say to me in my profession all the time sometimes is that it's hard to be Jewish. So, you know, you live in Teaneck and Bergenfield, New Jersey, and I'm curious how you would respond to people that Judaism isn't important to them. And people also sometimes struggle with faith. And I'm curious if faith is something that you struggled with before, during, or I know you were very young during the war, but your parents enduring what they endured.
Yes, a lot of people I know who before the war they were religious, you know. They
Mhm.
were some people was very religious, and when went through the concentration camp and the Holocaust, everything, they came back and they just give up their religion. They don't bother, they don't eat kosher, they don't, they just turned away. And
Right.
a lot of people after, you know, especially younger people did that, you know. And after that, when they got married and they changed, they went back to the religion, and they're raising the children religious, and they have a different outlook, you know, than
Mhm.
before, because everybody on the when was the Holocaust said, why it's happened to us, why they killing us, what did we do, you know, we deserve that, we didn't deserve that, what happened. And then I know some people said there is no God, if would be God, then this wouldn't happen, you know. And after a while they realized that, you know, what's happening, so they turned to go back to Jewishkeit. And my things was completely different. We were religious before the war, and my parents kept kosher and everything. That my father said to us when he came back, when he was out fighting, you know, the suffering from the Germans, he said if he will come back alive and he will find his family together, he's going to be a religious man and he will keep Shabbat very strictly. And when he came back and he found us, he kept his word. And he raised us. He raised us to be a religion. You know, so it doesn't matter what kind of situation we were, we didn't give up. We didn't give up. We kept Shabbat. If we didn't had to, if we had nothing to eat, we didn't eat because it was not kosher, the food. I had friends, you know, neighbors who was non-Jewish people or what. We went to play with the kids in the same house, and they always said, "Oh, you want to eat something? You want to stay for dinner or what?" We always said no. We always said no. We're going home, and I can't eat this. I can't eat that. I'm sorry, we didn't. So we were raised like that, and my parents believes very strongly about religion, you know, and that's what they were, you know, was teaching us, and I'm teaching my kids the same way. And Baruch Hashem, my kids and my grandkids and great grandkids, they turn out well. You know, they are following our road, you
So
know,
you think
footsteps. Yeah,
God is an important part of your life.
it is. It is very important. And we could see it, you know, God is there and always help us out, always. I mean, I believe so much. If I'm in trouble, I turn to him right away
Mhm.
and help me.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
I just want to say, I hope that I made it clear. I would never judge anyone else, no matter what they've been through, whether they were in the war or not, for not believing in God. I just find it so interesting how many people kept religion in the most difficult of circumstances. And that being, so how do you feel about when you see Jews in America choosing not to be Jewish?
I feel. You mean Jewish people turn to be not Jewish?
Yeah, like Judaism just isn't important to them.
They don't know. They, I don't know really. I mean, they are human beings too. I'm not saying that, a person who lives without religion, it's not a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you don't believe, you have to believe something. I think it doesn't matter you are Jewish, Christian, or Catholic or what. Religion is guide you. Religion is make you a better person. You know, if
did
you
your
live
faith-
without religion, you're not a person.
Did your faith help you survive the war, do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And we even, you know, we never hide it. We never, you know, we never said we're not Jewish. We never hide it. We are Jewish. I worked in the working a place where 95% more, 98% people was non-Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Was Spanish, Haitian, African, how do you put it? African, American, you
Uh-huh.
know, and I was Jewish. Me and the rabbi, and sometime my director was Jewish. Only 3 or 4 people, all of us, you know. And they used to tell me, "Oh, you are a Jew. You are rich because you are a Jew," you know. And I always stand up for myself, and I always answer. I say yes, because I believe in religion, and I believe God, and I believe a normal life, you know. And that's why, and I'm raising my children that way, you know. So I think religion is very, very important in your life.
Mm-hmm. And if you could share with us one message of how we can tap into that, because it sounds like you're a very resilient person, a person who's lived through a lot. What do you say to yourself on hard days? Because I'm sure you've had a lot of hard days of your life. How do you get yourself through hard
I
days?
had a lot of hard days, definitely.
How do you get through them?
First of all, I daven every morning. You know, that's my first things when I get up. You know, after I get dressed, I wash everything. That's before breakfast, I daven. You know, and then you know, if I have a hard day, you know, I take a Tehillim. I say Tehillim every single day.
You
You
read
know,
from the
doesn't
book.
matter in the morning or night or what. You know.
So if you're just having a hard day, you'll just open up the book of Psalms and start reading it.
That's what I do. I do it. I read it, and it's interesting. I get so used to it, so I can't go to sleep in the night if I don't say you know, Tehillim. So, and that's it. And then I you know, I live alone, and sometimes I walk in the house and I said, "Please God, help me out. You always help me out. You're gonna help me out not to, you know." And He does. He does. I believe it.
So God kind of helps you get through the hard moments or hours or days of your life.
What kind of what?
Oh God.
God helps you get through, Hashem helps you get through the hard moments of your life.
Yes, always help me to. Yeah, always help me to. You know, I always. So I believe it very much, you know. I believe it. And, you know, I like to, Julie knows we traveled together. We went to Dublin all over, you know, and we believed everything. And I love to go to the hotel, and I'm waiting to go to Israel. You know, Mercy Chancellors is over because my parents is buried in Israel. My grandmother is there and my mother, father. And if I having a hard time, that's the first thing I go. Now I can't go. That's the first thing I go to my parents' grave.
Where are they buried?
Hot.
Beautiful.
And I go there and I ask them to help me out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing that they're still, it's amazing that your parents were these pillars of strength in your life. And even now that you still find strength in them.
Yeah, I am always, you know, we were a very close family, very, very close family. It's not just with my parents and my brother, my grandparents, and even the family members in other families. You know, we were the center of the, anybody had any problems or anybody, Pesach time, our house was full. My grandmother, brothers and sisters, everybody was in the house. You know, they came to us always. And they always, our house was always open.
Wow.
And my house is too. My house is always open. Anybody who
I
comes.
find it very inspirational because, and again, I wouldn't judge people, but sometimes after people have been through so much, they wouldn't necessarily choose to be so open and to bring people in. And that's a real testament to their character and to your character.
I love when people comes. I love when I love my grandchildren is in my house.
I think a few of them are on this call, right? Hi, Dina. Hi, Rebecca.
Good job, Grandma.
Hi.
Mark, are you a grandchild? Brian, are you Eliana?
Son-in-law.
Son-in-law. Okay, beautiful.
Go
Is there any, sorry?
Said, grow grandma, you're doing great.
Yeah, good job, Grandma. We love listening to it.
Is there anyone that has?
Mark is Mark and Rina is my advisor. If I have any problem medically, I call him, and then Rina asks Mark. Mark tells Rina and tell me back, and I relax. You know. After
Mark,
that,
what
I say
kind of
whatever they
physician
say, it's MS.
What kind of physician are you, Mark?
Internal medicine.
Oh, so we'll ask Chaya to ask Rina if we have any questions, right? Nobody has any questions this past year, right?
Been a few questions, but tonight we're just proud of Grandma and everything she's been through, and for giving this presentation. It's been very inspirational.
Oh, Grandma, one last question.
Okay,
that I have, and other people are welcome to ask theirs. A lot of people are experiencing, I guess, what in vernacular we call COVID fatigue. Like, it's hard, you know, their lives have been disrupted for the past year. So how would you respond to people that say, this is too hard, I'm done, I want to give up, this is very hard for me?
I tell you, last year, March, we had a ticket to go to Israel. We planned, you know, Julie's parents supposed to come. I was very, very excited. Oh, we're going to have a good time, you know, and we had apartment, everything. And then COVID came and happens. They kids telling me, Ma, you can't go out. You can't go anywhere. You have to stay in the house. First, I thought it was a joke, you know. I don't even realize, you know, it's so serious. You know, we were by Toba for Purim, you know, for dinner time. And right after that, you have to stay in the house. You have to stay in the house, and whatever you need, we're going to bring it. Okay, so then I saw the news and I saw what's happening. Okay, I was in the house 3 months. I didn't put my feet out. Okay, after 2 months, I went for a walk around the corner because it was already too much. Okay, every day, either Julie or Larry or Shia or Toba or the kids, everybody came, was a package front of the house, you know, and they called me, Grandma, what do you need? What do you need? I said, I have so much food. What do you need this? They went shopping, they were doing everything, you know. Everything. So 3 months I was in the house. I wasn't bored. I always find something. My granddaughter bought a puzzle in the mail, you know, send it to me on how do you call it? Yeah, Amazon. And I did the puzzle, you know. I was happy and I enjoyed the puzzle. And then I was reading, I was television watching, you know, so, and was cooking for myself, you know. So 3 months later, I got edgy. It's a little bit, I wanted to get out. I was afraid to go, you know. So till the kids told me, okay, Ma, you could go to a store. The first time I went to the store, I was so scared. I had gloves on. I had the sanitizing things in my hand. I had the mask on. I came home. I washed myself. You know, and every time when I heard somebody got COVID, I thought I have COVID. You know, or what? So then, thank God, it was fine. So now, even now, I keep busy. I cook. Now the kids could come over with a mask on it. They could, and I go out a little bit more. And I got the vaccine now, the first one. So soon I get the second one. I hope I'm going to be safe, and I still keep myself busy. I'm not bored. I never bored. I always find
The
something.
antidote to feeling so down from COVID is to not allow ourselves to be bored.
No. At first, thank God we had 3 weddings this COVID time. And I was busy with the dresses, and I know how to sew. So for one, I sew the dress, other one, I fix the dress, So I always keep busy. I always keep busy. So I'm never bored. And okay, COVID is not a good thing. That I managed. I managed,
Does anyone else I want to just open it up. I'll unmute you if anyone has any other questions. But y'all know me, I'm very curious, so I'll keep asking questions until someone else has a question. Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
Your husband lost a lot of family members. What was it like you raising children, knowing that the world could be very scary?
I don't think about it.
So you just chose faith over fear?
That's all. I didn't think about that. The world is scary when I raised my kids. My kids had freedom. They choose and they did whatever they wanted. I helped them out when they needed me. I was there. Then I don't think. Now as of today, I was thinking my kids have a hard time, and because to raise children today, it's harder than when I was raising my kids.
In what ways do you think it's harder now?
Now it's harder. Definitely, it's harder to raise children. At that time, when I raised my children, there wasn't. I didn't have to worry about to hanging out in the street or dope. I mean, how do you call it? Dope?
Now it's legal in New Jersey.
Yeah, dope or okay, they didn't. We lived in Brooklyn, and we lived in the very safe neighborhood, and
that's Brooklyn. The safe neighborhood is Brooklyn.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it was we lived in Borough Park and then Flatbush.
Were there a lot of Holocaust survivors in Borough Park and Flatbush?
Yes. Yeah, in Borough Park a lot. And I had friends in Borough Park, a lot of friends I had.
Did you guys talk about what you had been through?
Yeah, but most of them. And some of them, thank you. Some of them, they lost their parents. I have a friend, not even one, a couple of friends whose parents didn't come back from the war,
Yeah.
One of my friends who's grew up in the orphanage home in Hungary, and another one raised by the grandparents, so I had friends, most of them like that they raised the children well, and they are well, okay, so they get over it. They get over it, It's now it's very hard to raise children because the college and because that dope and because that not safe, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I always tell my grandchildren, behave, be good and behave.
Do they listen?
You listening?
Can you tell my children and grandchildren to be good and behave? God willing, I should merit grandchildren.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for your time, and for Julie for helping and for opening up. And also just, we should take a second to remember that for every story like yours, thank God, that ends with, dozens of grandchildren that tune into Zoom to hear your legacy and your story, there were so many other people who unfortunately were not able to. And
That's right.
today we think about them, and it shouldn't just be today, actually every day. I believe we should every day think about those of us who unfortunately were killed just for being Jewish. And the best thing we can do, I personally became religious from studying World War II. I grew up very secular, and Deborah Lipstadt was my professor. Did you follow her trial? Do you know who Deborah Lipstadt is? She's the world expert on Holocaust denial.
Yeah.
And she's a professor at Emory University, where I went to college, and she was sued by David Irving, a historian, a revisionist historian in London, a professor who is one of the people who believe that the Jews exaggerated the Holocaust to gain support for the state of Israel and other reasons. So she was sued for libel by one of these horrible people, and she had a big trial. There's a great movie for those of you that haven't seen it called Denial, actually, about her trial. And I think Rachel McAdams plays her, or like a really famous movie. No, sorry, Rachel Wentz.
Okay.
And anyways, so I was very secular, and I took her course, and it really affected me studying the Holocaust in depth, seeing how anti-Semitism was still alive and well. And I kept asking her what we can do for their memory. And it kind of occurred to me that all of them were killed for one reason and one reason only, because they were Jewish. And I didn't know what it meant to be Jewish or to live like a Jew. So I thought, if 6 million of our people can be killed for being Jewish, we kind of owe it to them to live for being Jewish. So I think that it's very important for us, the next generation, and especially as less people, hear direct evidence, it's so important for us to continue sharing your story. So thank you so much. I know it's not always easy.
You're very welcome. That's okay. At least, I could tell the story, and, whatever I remember.
Thank God.
That's
okay.
nice.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us, especially all the Farkases
Thank you.
and Iskowitzes and relatives and sons and daughters-in-law. And it's great to see you guys. Thank you so much. Be well.
You.
Thank you.
Nice.
Happy Tu B'Shvat, everybody. We're now entering into Tu B'Shvat.
You too. You too.
Everybody
Thank
should
you.
enjoy in good health.
Okay.
Well, take
Bye.
care.